Every year, companies that seem untouchable suddenly fall apart. Not when they're struggling. When everything is going well. The same thing happened nearly 3,000 years ago. A king didn't fall when he was weak. He fell when he was at the peak of his success. And the Bible tells us exactly why. What's interesting is that the real issue wasn't money at all. Most people think companies fail because the market turns against them, money dries up, or they make a bad bet. But when researchers look at how businesses actually fall apart, they keep noticing the same pattern. The trouble often starts right after a big win. The best quarter they've ever had. The major award. The headline that makes everyone think they've made it. Which raises a question. Why does success so often become the beginning of the problem? That's a question Scripture was asking long before business schools ever existed. Picture a founder who built something that actually works. People believe in what she's doing. Customers keep coming back because the product solves a real problem. She's not reckless. She's not obsessed with getting rich. She just wants to keep building. There's nothing wrong with that. The question is what success starts doing to a person once it arrives. That's the part Scripture keeps coming back to, not the money itself, but what happens to the heart that holds it. Most people know the line, money is the root of all evil. But that's not actually what it says. The passage talks about the love of money. And that one missing phrase changes the whole meaning. The problem isn't money. It isn't success. It's what can happen inside a person when money starts taking up too much space in their heart. And that's really what this story is about. Money doesn't ruin people. Most of the time, it just shows more clearly what's already there. Give someone more money, and the things that were hiding in the background tend to get louder. Patience or impatience. Gratitude or entitlement. Humility or the need to be in control. That's why the Bible's warning was never really about money itself. It was about what happens to your attention. What happens to your heart when life starts going your way. When you no longer feel like you need anyone's help, where does your confidence go? What do you start trusting instead? If you want to see how this works in real life, look at King Uzziah. For most of his life, he was exactly the kind of leader people hope for. He ruled Judah for 52 years and got things done. He strengthened the army, built up Jerusalem's defenses, improved farming in dry land, and expanded trade. The nation grew stronger and wealthier under his leadership. The Bible is pretty clear about why. Uzziah sought God, and while he stayed grounded in that, things went well for him. This wasn't a story about a struggling king finally catching a break. And it wasn't a corrupt ruler gaming the system. By the standards of his time, Uzziah was leading a kingdom that was thriving. This is the part people keep coming back to. The story says that once Uzziah became powerful, pride got the better of him. It wasn't money that brought him down. It wasn't bad luck or some sudden crisis. It was what success did inside him. He walked into the temple and decided to burn incense himself, even though that wasn't a king's role. The priests confronted him, but he wouldn't hear it. He got angry instead. And that's where everything started to unravel. The account says he was struck with a skin disease and spent the rest of his life cut off from normal public life, while his son took over the day-to-day work of ruling. The real turning point wasn't the wealth or the power. It was the moment he stopped listening to people who were trying to correct him. You see the same thing in business all the time. Companies that looked unstoppable start falling apart. Not because they suddenly ran out of smart people or money. More often, the people at the top stopped listening. They stopped listening to customers. They ignored warning signs. They brushed aside the advisors who helped them succeed in the first place. The success wasn't the problem. The problem was that success made it easier to believe they didn't need anyone else's input anymore. That's the same pattern Scripture pointed to thousands of years ago. So what does that mean if you're building something today? A few things stand out. First, don't shut out the people who tell you the truth. Uzziah started getting into trouble when he stopped listening to the people willing to push back. Things get dangerous when everyone around you just nods along. Second, pay attention when things are going well. Most people think the risk shows up when everything is falling apart. A lot of the time it's the opposite. The danger comes right after the win, when you're feeling untouchable. Third, confidence and control aren't the same thing. Uzziah was capable. Nobody questioned that. The problem wasn't his ability. The problem was thinking his success gave him the right to step wherever he wanted and ignore the limits that still applied to him. The story isn't saying money is bad. It isn't saying ambition is bad either. It's a warning about what happens when you start believing you can do it all on your own. If you'd like, I can make it even more conversational and less sermon-like. Here's the part that hits me. Uzziah didn't spend 52 years making bad decisions. Most of his reign went well. He built, he grew, and he led effectively for a long time. So the story isn't warning us that success automatically corrupts people. It's warning us about what happens when nobody can tell a successful person they're wrong. The guardrails were there. The people around him were there. He just stopped listening. And that's still the risk for anyone building something today. So here's the question I'd sit with this week. Who still has the right to tell you you're wrong when things are going well? Not when you're struggling. That's easy. Most people will speak up when they can see you're in trouble. Who can challenge you when you're succeeding? Think back to that empty corner office. The real danger wasn't the money. It wasn't growth. It wasn't success. The danger was believing you no longer needed people who would tell you the truth. That's what happened to Uzziah. Wealth didn't bring him down. Power didn't bring him down. He stopped listening to correction. And that's a mistake that can wreck a kingdom, a company, a ministry, or a family. It's worth remembering if you're trying to build something that lasts. If this story made you see Uzziah a little differently, come back next week. There's another lesson hiding in the text that most people read right past.